right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest ALTA Insights webinar. I'm Jeremy Yohe, ALTA's Vice President of Communications, and today we've got a great presentation lined up to discuss the use of artificial intelligence and large language models like ChatGPT in the title industry. AI has definitely garnered significant attention definitely over the past year, not only in the title and financial services industry, but also the government. Government's paying attention to this. In October, the Biden administration issued an executive order that establishes new standards for AI safety and security. Not only at the federal level, state governments are paying attention. The NAIC is also focused on this technology. But rest assured, Alta is definitely focused on this and putting together a group of industry experts to discuss the impact of AI in industry and help develop principles to help provide guidance as we learn more about this technology. Today's webinar is being recorded. Go here. And you'll get an email with a link to the recording tomorrow. And you can always access all of Alta's webinars at alta.org/webinars. That's alta.org/webinars. In the meantime, you can download a PDF of the presentation from the handout section there in the GoToWebinar window. We've also provided a couple of other documents. The first is a PDF of the August edition of Title News. It features an article about the risk and reward of ChatGPT. As well, in that edition also has an article from Alana's Hoyt-Mann that poses the question, when will ChatGPT open its own title agency? And we've also provided an article penned by one of our speakers that reinforces a lot of what we'll talk about today, and that's how large language models can bring efficiencies to the title industry. If at any time you do have a question, submit them through the questions box. We'll hold a little time at the end for Q&A. I do need to thank F&F family of companies for sponsoring today's webinar. And before introducing the speakers, we have a short commercial from Fidelity. Okay, all right, thank you, Fidelity, for that commercial. It's a catchy tune there. Let me move some things here on my screen. There we go. All right, now we can introduce today's speakers. First, we have Jack O'Donoghue. Jack is managing partner of Touchstone Closing. Sorry, Jack. Jack started Touchstone Closing in 2016. And the firm has grown to over 45 team members across 5 locations throughout New England. Also joining us, we have Robert Zwink. Robert is Chief Technical Officer at Rossi Title, which uses large language models to increase efficiency and accuracy in the title insurance underwriting. Robert has more than 2 decades of experience leading startups and established organizations through growth and tech transformation. I'm really excited about today's discussion. And Jack, before I turn it over to you, just had a quick poll question to ask everyone on the webinar to get a sense of where everyone is in the just trying to launch it here in implementing AI. So if you don't mind, take a few seconds, let us know. Yes, no, we're just thinking about it. take a few more moments here. We got about 28%, 29% yes, 44% no, and a little more than a quarter are thinking about it. So Jack, there we go. It looks like 75% no or thinking about it. So a lot of education opportunities here. So I'll turn it over to you.
Jeremy, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for joining us today, and to Rob and to everybody at Alta for coordinating this and setting this all up and really coordinating our skills. And in many ways for this, I feel like a kindergartner interviewing an astronaut. That's the analogy I'll use, because Rob is just such an incredibly bright and talented technical person, and we're all very fortunate to hear some of the things that he has to offer today as I try to kind of navigate that for all of us. And I think that poll that came out just now from Jeremy is very much in line with one of our later slides about the use of ChatGPT and AI and other tools. And in terms of the general population, I think that we're falling in line with that. With that, I would like to introduce everybody to Rob Zwink and let him take it from there and sort of go through our initial outline.
Thanks, Jack, and thanks FNF for sponsoring this webinar and for everyone here today. As mentioned, I'm Rob Zwink. Of my experience, I thought potentially most relevant would be 13 years at JP Morgan. So I came to real estate and title by way of large financial services. And while in a technology role at JP Morgan, it was important to me to keep an eye on emerging technologies and the application of them. And I'm excited to be here today to talk about AI and how it's being applied within title. To start off, it seemed like a good idea to introduce what is AI. I think as we have used that term for more than 40 years, there's a fair degree of enthusiasm for it, some confusion, some anxiety as well. And so we're going to kick off a slide around specifically what is AI. So Jeremy, okay. This is a bit word heavy, but I more specifically wanted to point to the last 5 bullets on the slide. But generally speaking, artificial intelligence refers to the simulation of human intelligence. Any computer program or mechanical device that can appear to make a decision that a human would normally make could qualify. We've, as computer scientists and computer engineers, have been performing AI for many years. I think of it as the application of statistics within computer systems. And as many of you know, statistics has been around for a long time as well. The primary areas where AI exists today are machine learning, enables AI to learn from data and improve over time. Anyone who has access to a spam filter in your inbox is doing some form of machine learning in order to classify a email as potentially spam. Deep learning, a subset of machine learning using neural networks to model high-level abstractions in data. That's a pretty confusing sentence, but the general idea there is as you do machine learning, you do have access to even more complicated routes of categorizing information. This is an area where AI also exists. Natural language processing allows AI to understand, interpret, and generate human language. This is an area from folks who interact with Google and have it type ahead and complete your sentence, or the ability to differentiate an apple as a fruit from Apple as a company within the context of a sentence. We have computer programs who have been able to do that for some time. Computer vision enables AI to interpret and understand the visual world. For the folks who have self-driving cars, I mean, it definitely feels like science fiction until you watch it in action. And those are interpreting events around the vehicle using cameras and object detection. And then reinforcement learning, a type of machine learning where agents are trained to make sequences of decisions by receiving rewards or penalties. This is an opportunity for computer engineers and computer scientists to take all of this information and create routines that can repeat themselves by effectively predicting the appropriate outcome. I wanted, while certainly a detailed slide for what is AI, as someone who has now presented a handful of times on AI, one of the first questions I get is, AI has been around for a while. You know, is this another buzzword? And I think maybe it's both. AI has been around for a while. Certainly, ChatGPT has introduced a new level of enthusiasm that folks who may not have been or willing to participate in these other bullets are now excited about interacting with. And Jack, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you'd like to add to this slide.
I think you just described me completely. I would be the person that is really interested in what OpenAI has done and ChatGPT and the technical ability of that software and the future of that software. You know, as a Google search term, it ranks significantly higher than terms that previously were important, such as SEO. You know, it's sort of replaced SEO, I think, in the buzzworthiness community of words. So I feel like ChatGPT is taken over in that regard. I know we have a slide on it coming up here.
Great. And our next slide is an introduction to what is ChatGPT. And as we were preparing for this presentation, and you know, even at the beginning when we're thanking all of you for being here today, the reason you're here today is to learn more about the application of AI within Tidal. And it's still very much an emerging field. I feel like we're not yet at a point where anyone is on the outside or left behind. So by having you here, and we wanted to introduce also just if you have yet to interact with ChatGPT, the way you do that is you go to this website, chat.openai.com. That's the entry point into you know, poking around in what a lot of folks have been talking about. It was developed by OpenAI. So OpenAI is a company, ChatGPT is their product. It utilizes techniques from machine learning and natural language processing. Those were 2 bullets on my previous slide. So it's combining different machine learning techniques to generate responses to user inputs, learning from patterns in the data it was trained on. The reason why these 2 bullets are important is for folks who have interacted with ChatGPT, it almost has an eerie type of intelligence. The reality is that it's constrained by the information that it was trained on. So, you know, imagine Google and all of its websites that it has indexed. OpenAI has taken the information from all of those websites and put them onto a giant supercomputer and have developed the software that can answer questions based on what's on that supercomputer. It can't answer questions beyond what's on that supercomputer. And while it is sometimes uncanny to interact with it and, you know, perceive it reasoning, at the end of the day, it's still interacting with the information that it was trained on.
I suppose so this was a chart that I ran across in our preparation for today and really echoes Rob's point about it's not too late. And that's really my primary message today for everybody, that, you know, overwhelmingly people have not used it themselves to generate anything. Overwhelmingly people maybe have seen it or heard of it, or have just, they're not familiar with it, or they have no interest at all. I don't think those people are on this call today, this webinar. I believe the people that are on this call, you know, have a level of interest in it, have used it, and are curious to see, you know, what else is possible with the technology. There's another slide or chart that I almost included and did not, but to the earlier slide, you do have to sign up for OpenAI, and I feel like that's a little bit of a roadblock for people. That being said, they got some news early on about a year ago when they reached 1 million signups in the fastest period of time ever. Faster than any other software or social media out there. So there was a lot of buildup to it, which I'm sure that Rob could comment on as well. But there was a lot of buildup to the launch, and even weekly now there's sort of buildup to launches and improvements with ChatGPT. I actually saw just this morning that they're pausing their pro memberships temporarily to, you know, better suit the customer. Rob, what's your take on sort of the last year? It's been a full calendar year now with this in the popular culture.
One of the important bits of data on ChatGPT was that it was created by a white paper that Google produced. So you know, the data scientists at Google PhD level research paper on attention networks. And then a number of different companies have taken that paper and implemented the learnings from it, OpenAI being one of them. As OpenAI has gained popularity, there are other similar programs that are accessible, like Microsoft has one, Amazon's allegedly developed one. Apple has introduced new microchips into future iPhones to take advantage of this style of technology. So I think as we consider the past year, certainly there's the public face, like the popular intro into how these large language models work, but it's also just as interesting to see the industry react in very big ways across folks who would be normally competitors. So this next slide is around the topics for today. So we wanted to set a solid foundation of what is AI, what is ChatGPT, give you guys a sense that we're glad you're here and we're glad to be learning together along the way. So we're here to share some of those learnings. The topic specifically around areas where title companies are using AI. This will be a list of areas where title companies are using AI. We're going to introduce to many of you a new term, which is local large language models, which are a way of understanding ChatGPT in a way that hopefully will make it a bit more accessible and also prime your imagination for what the future may hold. And then also we're going to cover conversational AI and the future of title GPT, which is how this technology will impact real estate from a kind of a futurist's perspective. So I'll on the how title companies are using AI, Jack, if you want to kick us off.
Sure. So there's several bullet points here which I'd like to run through. We have some use cases in action that follow this slide, so I want to move through this relatively quickly and more speak to my own experience as somebody who is in charge of a larger title operation, or medium-sized, larger title operation with 40 or 50 people. You've got different personalities, you've got different comfort levels with technology, and testing it out. And sort of at my soul, I'm really a tinkerer. I think is when I see tools like this come about and I try them and I use them and I immediately think, geez, how can I use this on my day-to-day? How are other folks perhaps using them? But ultimately, what really, I mean, in the title business, it's a relationship business. It's a human-to-human business. So it's not gonna, it's not a magic pill or an easy thing for people to just implement and you're off and running. I think it takes some real considerable work from everybody in your organization and both yourself as an individual and as a professional to utilize this technology to the best possible way. Number one that felt the most obvious for us was just to improve I should backtrack a bit. Several years ago, we had retained the services of a copywriter, which was some of the best advice I ever got, to write sort of our standard communications that go out to people on all sides of the transaction at any point. And so I felt like this was an opportunity to sort of improve those templates with essentially just, copy paste. I mean, very elementary. As I said, I'm the kindergartner on this call, but just a copy the email, paste it in, have ChatGPT crank something out. And with any type of template improvement or communication improvement, it's all about the prompts, which I'm sure Rob can touch on as well, but just providing the right prompts for the software to use. If it gives you a template and you want more, you could just say more and it'll keep spitting out helpful pointers and additions. So anything that's written communication improvements, sales and marketing communications, those critical sort of bits of information and where you share them, how you share them, what you say, your messaging, and you can obviously, transition that from written to verbal or written to, written to video or to any type of audio file, whatever it might be. But that is how we can use it. We can use it day to day, all day long. Myself personally, I use it anywhere from 40 to 50 times a day, if not more, on various tasks. I've kind of really honed in on my own creative efforts to utilize it. In terms of our staff, that they're aware of it, that they use it as a resource, as a tool. Again, it's not going to replace anybody or anything, but it's a tool in the toolbox. I added social media with caution. because I think that it really sticks out like a sore thumb when you do use it for social media. It becomes so obvious that it's a little bit funny to me at this point how obvious it is when people are copy pasting very long blurbs that are not really in line with who you are as an individual or as an organization, to come out of nowhere with these, books. And now I guess Amazon and limited, you can only publish 4 books a day. It's laughable, but it's true. So that's how easy it is now for somebody to just write a book, and you could write and write and write all day long. So, but it is helpful in terms of your creative work, in terms of your perhaps your social media strategy. Document abstracts and summaries is a huge way that I use it. You may see a long, I'll just give an example. I may see a long article in the journal or any other publication. Maybe I don't have time to read the whole thing, but I can copy it, paste it in there, say, give me a summary, or give me a summary as if I'm a second grader, or whatever it might be. You can summarize the latest news and information in digestible chunks that you have the time for. Language translation is an interesting one for me, because I feel like at any type of in our organization, in our career, in our industry, we're going to run into folks that don't speak the same language as us. So that to me is a huge opportunity for us to sort of be aware of how easy it is for AI to translate documents or translate language. I know there's other tools out there too, but this is right in that wheelhouse for people. There's companies out there that were at the Alta One conference, virtual closing assistants that exists right now. And I'm sure, I have no doubt that some of the other service providers and vendors that help all of us do our business are going to jump right on that as well, in terms of providing any type of chatbot or virtual AI assistant to help us kind of do our business more efficiently. So they already exist, but it's a question of how many more sort of sprout up, and what is their how much can they help us on a day-to-day basis is what it comes down to. I'll turn it over to Rob to see if he has any thoughts on these slides.
Yeah, I think from the chatbots perspective, this is an area where, I imagine, like most people, every time I would find myself in a chatbot, I would try to figure out how to get out of a chatbot. And now that I feel like technology has caught up to the expectation of a helpful automated assistant, maybe unfortunately or fortunately, we're going to see a higher quality chatbot, and we're going to see a lot more of them. And so I think as we consider our businesses and how we compete or provide a degree of customer service, it will continue to need to balance once somebody gets into a chatbot rail, that it be truly helpful. And I think we'll see more and more companies that are providing quality products on that front. Our next slide introduces a concept called local large language model. And as we're going through the information we wanted to convey, one of the challenges of large language models like ChatGPT is sharing information with it. So, as I mentioned, ChatGPT is owned by OpenAI. They're very clear in their terms of service that one shouldn't send sensitive data to ChatGPT. And as professionals, there are times when sensitive data and the ability to use a large language model with sensitive data you're prevented from it, because it wouldn't be appropriate to provide that data to OpenAI. The concept of a local large language model, what that means is with a PC, and as I tell the story, I went to Micro Center. I built the pieces, bought the pieces, and put it together to create a PC with a video card. I go to a website called Hugging Face, which is owned by Facebook. I can create my own ChatGPT, like running in the Razi offices where I work. So Razi HQ has its own large language model running within our local network. Information that's provided to it remains within our intranet and never leaves to a third party. The reason why that's important is there's another application of large language models that you'll see more and more, which is the ability to take text from documents and create meaningful indexes from them. And while in the real estate title space, that's a very important task. And it's one that, from a title plant perspective or from your own starter management systems, the ability to index documents efficiently and accurately is something that can be a bit of a cost center, but can also enable the business. So I'll show you an example on the next slide of exactly what that means. So here we have a deed. This is in fact the deed to my house. So I give myself permission to put it in this slide, but the general idea is, this is a deed in Ohio, Franklin County, lots of stamps, both from the auditor, the engineer, the recorder, the notary. The legal description has cursive, an addition around a vacated alley. I can load this deed into a local large language model and ask an English language question. Please extract key data elements from this image in JSON format, which, JSON format being a type of format that is structured that computer programs can understand. And what is produced on the upper right-hand side is a meaningful extraction. So with simply uploading this document in all its kind of messy digital wet stamps and handwritten notes, the program can extract relevant information, organize it in a way that's meaningful for my application. The next box below, what is the legal description? Similarly, it will extract the legal description. What was of particular note is it included the handwritten comments and captured it along with the legal description. And then finally, who prepared the deed? It does extract from the prepared by in the lower left-hand corner of the deed, who prepared it. There are a couple things I wanted to point out in this exercise. Is one, it spelled the attorney's name incorrectly. And the attorney in this case was both the notary and the preparer, and it consistently misspelled it. So despite the last name being in two different areas of the deed, it got it wrong both times. Also, while the legal description, I was very happy with how it picked up the handwritten text and isolated the legal description. It didn't capture the ordinance number correctly. It captured it as 2593 rather than 220. And that said, it's probably 98% correct, but the 2% is, why title offices arguably have, such value to their customers. And it's clear that while, we do get further with this technology, there's still a accuracy open accuracy question. But I wanted to kind of put this in hands-on concrete terms around, while ChatGPT does, for folks who have interacted with it, feel a lot like a chatbot, given that it is now a superpowered chatbot, you can give it context, which in this case is an image of a deed, and ask it questions. And then while ChatGPT is the kind of the popular implementation of a large language model, it is possible, and people are running this technology within their own offices. And I'll say one more thing and then pass it over to Jack for his thoughts on this slide. But the I mentioned earlier going to Micro Center and building this PC. That's actually all it takes in order to run a ChatGPT-like system locally, which I wanted to share that on this call because I'm not sure many folks know that. Jack, over to you.
Yeah, that's, as we were preparing, that was one of the things. This was the aha, the wow moment, one of them for sure, just that we can extract this information and the scale at which we can extract the information and deliver it to other software or to really anything that we need to use this information. So, I mean, I think you did an excellent job explaining it, and it is, it's a messy looking deed with, like, to your point, all the stamps and the cursive language and writing, and, to get as far as it did was really impressive. And it's, to me, it's a sign of things to come, especially now with, some of the pro applications, how even just the regular GPT, ChatGPT Pro, people can upload documents and ask similar questions. But for sure, the best way I think, is to have the local large language model yourself, have full control of it, and then really you don't have to worry about people, inputting sensitive information, which is, I think, what the biggest concern is, especially of large organizations, large title insurers, larger companies. They don't want to necessarily put their faith in people to be the judge on what should and should not be uploaded and what data should and should not be scraped from technology that you don't own. It's a huge risk. It's a huge area of potential issues.
Thanks, Jack.
Hey guys, I'm sorry to interrupt real quick, but yeah, this slide has spurred a few questions I thought I would just ask now since we're on it. John asks, what was the average processing time for the image to JSON translation? My guess is it wasn't that long at all.
Right. Let's say sub 10 second. So yeah, I think that would be a specific answer.
Yeah. So quickly.
Yeah.
and then Bobby Joe had a question, and I'm guessing if you just ask the follow-up questions. She asked, can it extract individual lots, blocks, and an additional name too?
The upper right-hand corner where it says please extract key data elements from this image in JSON format, that sentence is what people refer to as a prompt, or prompt engineering. And the reason why they call it prompt engineering is that one can craft very intentionally a question. So if I were to change that question to please extract lot and plat and page number and county where the recorder's office is located, then it would extract that information. So the prompt as it stands is very general. It kind of leaves it up to the large language model to determine what is a key data element, but you could be more specific.
Yeah, so it's basically just learning, what questions you want to ask, what data you're looking to pull out of there.
Right.
And so a follow-up question then, are you then, then pushing this data into a title plant program?
In the that is the next natural place for this. What given this topic is around the application of AI within title, and what is going on today, and this isn't necessarily a plug, but Razi is where I'm CTO, RaziExchange.com. We have prior policies, we have quite a few of them, and they were all indexed using this method. Mm-hmm. So they were all indexed using a local large language model post optical character recognition after having the document being normalized. So we only process prior policies, and for this purpose, we wanted to show a deed, in that a deed is public data, and this is a public webinar, but one could imagine a new type of title plant indexed by large language models.
Okay. All right, great questions. We got several more on this slide, but I'll turn it back to the both of you to push on here.
Yeah, and we wanted to, as I mentioned in the intro, kind of prime for your creativity and a sense of what the future may hold. The next slide has a example of creating a person, a persona. So in this case, this persona on the left-hand side has a photo, and his name is Compassionate Cameron. And on the left-hand side, I apologize that the text is kind of small, but essentially there's a brief bio of this person, a persona, Compassionate Cameron. He's a empathetic and devoted owner of a second-generation real estate title company called Land Grant Title, known for deep commitment to customer satisfaction and employee well-being. In writing this brief bio, I imagined a title office owner who, it's in his blood, in her blood, and does yoga. So sensitive guy. And the on the right-hand side is a question to Compassionate Cameron, asking Compassionate Cameron to write a letter to Sally, who just finished saving up enough money for a down payment, just used Land Grant Title to close a real estate deal. And while we don't want to be overly obvious, we'd love to have her referral business. So we're sending a congratulatory letter to Sally as Compassionate Cameron in his voice to a person who had a very specific life event and with a business need to continue the referrals. So on the right-hand side, me, in this case, it says you, but this is Rob Zwank. I typed this question. We helped our customer Sally Smith close on her first house in Grandview, a neighborhood with low inventory, difficult to get into. And then, I added the bit that, she really did a great job saving, and we'd like to recognize that accomplishment, but then also ask her for a referral business. And the Compassionate Cameron, in the voice of this, yoga going second generation, title is in his blood, writes this thoughtful letter. And the reason for this slide is when I put on my computer science hat, I think of scalability. And one of the challenges with scaling when you're trying to create personalization is that it can be difficult to scale, because both the tone of the letter, the individual, the situation that they're in, as well as the event that they've experienced, and being able to take a personal note that connects with them on a recent level was something that we recently experimented with, and I wanted to show the screenshot of the outcome. So both creating a persona, asking an in-context question, having a letter written on a specific event, and if I were to offer the result of that experiment, was that it did a pretty good job. So the interesting thing is one could write a persona other than Compassionate Cameron, maybe someone who's more data driven, or someone who's more adventurous, and connect with customers in a scalable way that does certainly doesn't feel very, very personal, but maybe more personal than a form letter without any real connection to their situation or their event. So this was another application of, this is a local large language model. So again, this is running on a local server. It doesn't use ChatGPT, but it uses the same technology that informs ChatGPT. So in those ways, one could also potentially include information about the customer without having it go to OpenAI, but instead run in your own environment. I have another example of the application of large language models specifically around computer vision, and that large language models and this style of application of them would be more specifically the underlying technology called transformers. What I am showing here on the upper left-hand side is the Alta Insights logo. This was a logo for the webinar you're attending. Below it is a mask that is created using a kind of a basic image tool. So it's with the logo and the mask, and then in the upper right-hand corner, you see a description. Depict a serene and picturesque Ohio farmland at sunrise. The scene should be bathed in soft golden light. Sounds beautiful. That plus the logo mask created those 4 variations of the same image. So it's able to take the logo, effectively draw lines around what are important about the logo, and then influence a AI generated image that contains the representation of the logo. So it's a kind of an easy way to make logos based on your existing logo by using large language models. And this is something now that if you haven't seen this before, you'll start to see more and more of it out in the wild, because I think there are quite a few companies who are taking advantage of this capability.
Yeah, just to jump in quickly on that, I mean, it looks a lot like there's a program called DALL-E, which is integrated with ChatGPT and OpenAI, and that type of imagery and that type of creation. For those of you, some of this on this call may have attended the presentation at Alta One with Sam Tribble and Bill Svoboda. And what they did is they created a settlement company from scratch during the presentation, standing room only crowd, amazing job. And I tried to find the presentation or a copy of it, could not. But if you actually visit snoopsettlements.com, that was the company they created, that website is still live, and they share on that website the tools that were used to create the settlement company in that brief period of time, including videos, marketing materials, posts, core values, emission statement, et cetera, et cetera. So the sky is truly the limit. The golden sky of the prior picture is truly the limit for people who want to use these technologies to not just create a company from scratch, but to improve your existing operations.
Thanks, Jack. This is, I believe, our final slide ahead of Q&A. And what was important to us to leave with you is actionable next steps. And if I were to recommend one in particular, is that I'm hopeful through this webinar that your creativity, a healthy degree of skepticism, but there is a degree of and a very valid and appropriate degree of enthusiasm around this technology and its adoption, and we'll see more and more of it. As you consider that and your own companies, having a responsible AI policy is a reasonable next step. So I mentioned one of the first things I hear when talking about AI is AI has been around for a long time, hasn't it? And the second thing I hear is the story about the lawyer who used ChatGPT and created a briefing, and then the judge found that everything was wrong with it. And that can happen. And I would argue it could happen to anyone who doesn't have a policy in place within their company around the appropriate use of it. There's a lot of power with what we've shown, and we want to make sure that the folks at our companies and have guidelines on how to apply it. So having a responsible AI policy is important, and this bulleted breakdown of what areas to look out for is part of the materials you have access to post the webinar. And obviously, if you have questions about these, we are happy to answer them. I do want to give additional time for questions, as I appreciate the ones who were sent over, and they were great questions. So I'd be happy to, Jack, if you have anything you want to say in closing, or.
Yeah, in closing, I mean, this really is the critical parting shot. I think that this is a great opportunity for people to use ChatGPT to create a AI policy for one's company with the given metrics that you want to provide. See what the technology can spit out there for you, and use that as a starting point, as a baseline for a working document for your own organization. And that would be my step, is not just to go and visit the site if you haven't and craft a poem or a song, but to actually use it for something helpful and create a policy for responsible use of AI within your organization, and maybe use that document with your employees, with your partners, and see if you agree with the language within the document. Doesn't have to be overly verbose, but put that together as a starting point for your firm's use of ChatGPT, AI, and other tools.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, guys. Wow, pretty fascinating stuff. Real quick, the Snoop Settlements website that Jack mentioned is a fictional website. It was just created to garner or to just spur more conversation around AI. But if you do want to check it out, it's snoopsettlements.com. So I don't know if I put it up, see it on my phone there. So you can go schedule a closing with Snoop Dogg. So, but it's probably an AI created Snoop. But yeah, we're gonna spend a little time with Q&A. If you have any questions for any of the speakers, pop them in the questions box, and we'll hang out for about 10 minutes or so. Robert, a few more questions from your slide with your deed to your house. So we're all checking it out now, I guess. Alex had a question. Do you see there being an AI that reads for stamps to specifically avoid counterfeit deeds someone might fraudulently e-record?
And My first thought would be around the slide that introduced the different AI categories, and computer vision being one of them. There would be an opportunity to train AI based on counterfeit stamps. You wouldn't necessarily use the transformer architecture, the large language model necessarily to do that. You could do that with the reinforced learning. So another thing that, for what it's worth, as a company like Razi, who, we are a co-op for title offices and insurance underwriters to exchange prior policies. Our customers are title offices. We often don't know who did the closing. The stamp on the left-hand margin tells us who did the closing. We have experimented with analyzing recorded deeds for the stamp, and while doing image recognition of the stamp and categorizing it in order to detect the probability that a particular title office closed the deal, being able to do this more advanced optical character recognition with a transformer-based architecture, like it can, through effective prompt engineering, it can answer the question who did the closing based on the stamp and the left-hand margin in a kind of spooky way.
Interesting. How about the use of prior policies that are issued by one company for other companies? Are you able to use those there at Razi?
You are, yes. Yeah, and thanks for asking. I mean, I certainly don't want to overplug our product. Anyone can reach out and certainly learn more about the Razi platform, but that is the idea, is that it be an open marketplace, independent exchange for prior policies.
All right. Trying to follow along. We're getting many questions coming in here. A couple of questions on the slide with the Alta Insight logo. Janine asked, are these programs free, or is there like a subscription based, or maybe Robert, a little insight into that?
Yeah, as we met and in preparation for these slides, I told a brief story about being able to program a VCR where, like, I remember a time when VCRs were complicated to program, and if you needed help, you'd find like a neighbor, ideally like technically a sound neighbor. And it's that same type of technically sound neighbor who can set up this type of image environment. So I just wanted to clarify, it's not an overly technical task to set it up, but it is technical. So specifically, there's a program called Stable Diffusion Web UI, another plugin for it called ControlNet, and so Stable Diffusion Web UI plus ControlNet, and somebody who likes to tinker could get it set up on a computer with a reasonable video card. So I know it's probably a very specific answer, but with that, you can create these types of images from your own PC.
And Rob, that would be if you went the local route, right?
That's true. There are companies who provide similar services, and I suppose as somebody who programmed my own VCR, I went the local route. All
right. A couple of questions about the dangers of AI. And Jack, maybe some of your thoughts. Running a title company. Ryan asked, is there a good way to spot AI? I'm thinking about the increase in fraud with more AI in the world and how that might impact the industry negatively. And then, John also asks, where do you see potential risks associated with integrating generative AI with the title insurance industry?
I'd love to answer, and then Jack would be glad to hear yours. The one thing I would say is I think it's going to be harder and harder and harder. I mean, I know as Jack mentioned, like it is kind of clear if somebody copies and pastes a long LinkedIn post and it's got all these emoticons and stuff. But one of the ways to previously detect phishing campaigns was through the misspelling of English language words. So you could kind of see somebody was trying to fake a wire instruction because the subject line would have, it just doesn't look right. The quality of it is off. I think if a hacker now has access to a real estate inbox, they can take the totality of that inbox and craft new emails in the voice of the title agent. So I think vigor around fraud prevention is, it's reasonable to expect that to continue to grow in importance. Jack, do you have something you'd add there?
Yeah, I think it is very similar to these phishing campaigns we see. I think they're just getting to be more advanced. And to your point about impersonation, it's something that all of us deal with on a day-to-day basis. It is a real concern and a real fear. The thing that I, am taking the most care with is with data privacy, my own ethical considerations about how I decide to use the technology and how I advise employees or partners to use the technology. It's I don't think there's a right answer just yet. And the question is a great one about how to spot it. I think anything that's written, anything that's long form that doesn't seem to be in a person's voice, especially if you know that person, I think that's sort of a red flag that it's probably not written by that person. And I'll use myself as an example. I've struggled with writing my life and my career. And so this is a tool that really helps me on a day-to-day basis, because I feel like when I read it, if I understand it, I make edits to it in my own voice, that it can be really helpful for me. But at the same time, it's not me who has crafted the entire message. And that, when you think back to compassionate Cameron, right? The intent is to provide a compassionate response from all of us, but we may not take the full time that we would have taken to write that communication.
Yeah, like ChatGPT, it definitely can be used to support your writing, but you definitely need to go back and edit it, review it, edit it, and make it fit the voice of yourself. You definitely just don't want to ask the question, copy it, paste it, and send it. So, few questions getting back to the language models, and this is beyond my knowledge here, but Philip asks, which model are you seeing the most success with, and what size model? I'm not sure what the size is.
Sounds like Philip may be a fellow Micro Center fan and may have his own PC and NVIDIA video card. But yeah, there's a model called Mistral. So this is part of the community that is being built around large language models. There's this website on the slide called Hugging Face that's owned by Facebook. It catalogs them all. And ChatGPT 4 is a large language model that's not on Hugging Face because it's owned by OpenAI and they don't make it available for anyone to download. But there are companies who have made their large language models available for download. Facebook has, Amazon has, Microsoft has, Google has, and a bunch of hobbyists. So I'm not exactly sure the lineage of this Mistral model. And then from that, to answer the question specifically, the size of it, from my perspective, kind of depends on how much video RAM you have. So I think the 6 billion parameter model, Mistral seems to be doing a pretty bang up job at indexing these text documents. And if you'd like to nerd out more on that, feel free to reach out.
Sorry, Jack, were you going to ask something? I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I was just laughing.
Okay. Elise asked if there's a specific Microsoft link for creating your own large local language model.
There are multiple ways, and it's a bit of a plug towards the article too, I think you shared, that describes how to gain, how to use your own documents to inform questions. There's kind of tiers of complexity. The easiest way is to effectively use it in context. The hardest way is to train your own large language model. I guess I'd probably refer you to the article, or again, anyone's welcome to reach out and I'd be happy to clarify, but that can get complicated quickly.
Okay, all right. Yeah, another question here on large language models. Do you see it as being a better option than OCR for title plant indexing?
So OCR, for probably most everybody here know, like optical character recognition. A lot of these documents come in as images of documents. They're not native PDF where you can just copy the text. You have to first convert the image into text. I have in my career periodically made the wrong bets. So for example, Apple came out with the iPad and I'm like, this will never work. I got to a point where I'm like, optical character recognition has got to be about as good as it can get. And I was wrong. So I'll give you an example. As Razi's gone through the indexing of hundreds of thousands of prior policies, now over 1 million. And as we've gone through that indexing, there are problems with OCR that are common. So for example, if I have a address and the state is in Michigan and the state code is MI, the OCR might interpret that as ML, like a lowercase l versus an uppercase I. So it'll say ML. So when I go to look up that address, it can't be found because there is no address in whatever ML state. Whereas if I submit that to a local large language model and say, what is the address of the property associated to this prior policy, it'll correct it for me. So I would add that even if you go through traditional OCR routes, passing it through a large language model corrects the common OCR errors. So out of the box, it does improve it. And I think that to then differentiate that with if it can do OCR, I think there's still a lot of work to do there. Like it's still very early days as to how much utility it'll have in that space, but it's certainly an area where it probably will.
All right, we've got time for one more question, and Robert Phillip followed up. He said he agrees. I like Mistral and derivatives. I'm running with 13B testing. So again, I don't really understand what any of that means, but I'm sure you do. One last question, and then we'll wrap up. And I think it's the question is on a lot of people's minds on the webinar. It's on mine, and I'd like both of your perspective on this one. Is as this technology evolves, what do you see as the impact on the title search business, the underwriting? Will it make it obsolete, or where does this technology take the title insurance industry?
Jack, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go first, I suppose. I mean, I certainly don't think it makes anything obsolete. Although I do, just into my own mindset with all this technology, is I do think about it with that approach. How could it possibly eliminate my function or our function in the space? And to that end, I mean, the ability of the human brain to solve these sort of complicated interconnectedness of title issues and defects feels like it's, I would never say it's not going to happen, but it feels like we're still a ways away from that. And this is pretty amazing technology from my viewpoint or from anybody's viewpoint who uses it. So I think that we're still a long way away from that, but that we are going to see, over the next few years to 5 to 10 years, more and more adoption and more use of the ability of these artificial intelligence tools and GPTs and local models and anything else that's out there for us to sort of make our jobs easier, make the ability to extract information and export information easier, make it easier to search. I've done a similar presentation for realtors, and these technologies are not connected to MLS data. There's a lot of limitations. There's things that, when you start trying this out, that we're not quite there yet. We can't access information. If you ask any GPT or large language model to produce a preliminary title report, it's not going to be able to do that. If it can, I stand corrected, but I've tried a few times and have been unsuccessful. So I think that our jobs are safe, our time is safe, but it's going to be interesting to see how the industry evolves and adapts to use this technology in the next few years.
Excellent. I know we're at time. I just offer, as a former JP Morgan, as a financial transaction, real estate is unique in that it's something a lot of people do 3 times in their life. I mean, their hopes and dreams are wrapped up in it. And as these tools can be used to create a more personal experience, I think that is one of the challenges, and one that I'm hopeful of the future. I think we'll end up with an environment where the human element is going to be even more necessary, and so I'm hopeful for the future, and its broader application towards title insurance. Maybe we'll save for the next webinar.
Definitely, and even the slide that you showed with the deed and the extraction, there were several errors there, and the title industry is about risk elimination. So there was still some risk of pulling out that data. So
Yep.
Definitely, the industry people are needed. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. If you do need to reach out to Robert or Jack, if you guys want to share your email real quick, or if you don't get it, you can reach out to me. I'll connect you with either.
Rob,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Rob at RosiExchange.com.
Yeah, mine's first initial J O'Donohue at touchstoneclosing.com. Could be happy to share that. I think if you search for us, you can find me, and I welcome any follow-up questions or thoughts. I could talk about this for days. So thank you all.
All right, fantastic. If you missed parts of today's webinar or think others in your office would benefit, as I mentioned earlier, a recording of the presentation will be sent tomorrow, and you can always find our archive of webinars at alta.org/webinars. I need to thank Fidelity once again for sponsoring today's webinar. And with that will bring us to the conclusion of today's presentation. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.